Sunday, August 28th, 2022, the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. The question of rank and order during the breaking of the bread might have been a problem in the community of Luke, just as it was in Corinth. People might have been rushing to the places of importance on such occasions. So, this story of Jesus might have been used to correct and to teach these people. Understanding this passage in the context of the Eucharistic celebration gives a different flavor to the meaning of the text. But we will reflect on that later. First, let us try to understand the cultural underpinnings of banquets and of sharing food. Banquet etiquette differs from culture to culture. Many cultures have hierarchies of seating when it comes time for a meal, while others have no such formal structure. A banquet is not about the food, but is more about galvanizing social status. Had it been only about the food, no one would bother about the position of seating. What does it matter where you sit if you are sharing the same meal? Who cares if you are seated on a golden chair or on a wooden one if you are eating the same food? So, a banquet has a different purpose. Many anthropologists have identified the significance of sharing food in creating and maintaining social order and structure. The type of food that you serve, how you serve, where you serve, whom you serve, and with whom you eat are significant social codes that require more than ordinary perception to identify. In cultures where avoiding shame is a major motive of human behavior, seating someone at the wrong table or with the wrong company is equal to losing face and denigrating the guests. Great care is taken in the seating arrangements in these places. In erstwhile India, and in some places even today, sharing even the cooking utensils between the castes was a taboo. The lower castes were often given food in the courtyard of the house, on a leaf spread in a small pit, which would curve the leaf enough to hold the rice porridge. The practice was intended to prevent an upper caste individual from contamination by the culture and the practices of a lower caste person. Oh, how inhumane we are capable of becoming. Jesus would break the taboos of food sharing among the Jews as an example for humanity to follow. To understand the gospel passage more deeply, we can look at the banquets that Jesus organized and the banquets in which he participated. There are two banquets that we remember specifically: the Last Supper and the one in the house of Zacchaeus. Both were occasions of immense learning of the values of the kingdom. In the Last Supper, Jesus was giving himself as food. Then, he taught them an extraordinary symbol of humility by washing the feet of the disciples. In the other meal, where Jesus invited himself into the house of Zacchaeus, the man gave away everything he had because of the worth of knowing Christ. When Christ is the food, everything else is tasteless. When Christ is the wealth, everything else is valueless. That meal with Zacchaeus and the tax collectors raised the eyebrows of the Pharisees. Jesus was accused of eating with the tax collectors and sinners, with whom the Pharisees found it unacceptable to eat. Jesus moved between the estates of the Pharisees and the so-called sinners very easily. The Pharisees found it difficult to share table with Jesus because he was sharing a friendship with the sinners. The sharing of meals represented the sharing of habits and of status. When Jesus shared the food of the sinners, the Pharisees were scrupulous that Jesus had also shared in their status and habits. Instead, Jesus gave them their self-respect by sitting and dining with them. Sharing a meal with the unwanted was Jesus' way of showing them a great appreciation. One meal with the poor and neglected can change the whole orientation of their lives. That is what happened with Zacchaeus. One meal can teach us a lot. Jesus dares to break all taboos on hierarchy and finds everyone equal in the kingdom of God. Or, if any hierarchy does exist, they undermine all the worldly standards of measuring ranks. By now, we are all familiar with the metaphor of the banquet and of the kingdom of God. Jesus also gives us some parables where God is the host of a banquet. He calls all people from the streets and alleys to participate in the wedding feast. God does not care about the status of the people, or he reverses their ranks. In the divine banquet, the Master finds out that those who were invited in advance had different reasons for skipping the banquet. Did they not find the invitation itself a sufficient honor? So, ultimately, the banquet hall of the Lord is filled with the homeless, the neglected, and the poor. In the kingdom of God, those who consider themselves the first are likely to be the last. In this world, if the status of a person is evaluated by the position he sits for the banquet, then, in God's banquet hall, the very invitation itself is the matter of pride. The one who hosts the heavenly banquet has made the guests, us, invaluable. The lesson that Jesus gives us is not just about humility, but about discernment of the value of the invitation itself. We have all been invited to the heavenly banquet where Christ gives himself as food and drink. Will we accept his invitation?